Chimera Protocol, Viral Outbreak, Book 3, The Convergence Engine. The air changed before the door opened. Lena noticed it immediately. Not through instruments, not through temperature variation or atmospheric pressure. Those remained stable. What changed was the feeling of the corridor itself. Sound no longer echoed naturally. The distant vibration of machinery had faded into a soft, flattened hush, as if the space ahead absorbed noise before it could fully exist. Filtered, engineered silence. The man guiding her slowed as they approached the final chamber. For the first time since entering the underground facility, he hesitated. That unsettled her more than the armed checkpoints, the sealed elevators, or the endless layers of reinforced containment buried beneath the earth. "This is the last level," he said, quietly. Lena studied the door ahead and stepped back. "Before I go any further, I need to know who you are." For several seconds, he said nothing. Then, "My name is Elias Voss. I helped design the first behavioral stabilization trials." Lena stared at him. "You worked on Chimera?" "I worked on what Chimera became. My team believed human civilization was approaching irreversible systems collapse. Climate migration, supply chain failure, resource conflict, algorithmic destabilization. You built a virus to fix society?" His expression hardened. "No. We built adaptive biological architecture designed to reduce conflict behavior during mass instability events." Lena laughed once in disbelief. "You engineered compliance. We engineered synchronization." "That's the same thing." Voss finally showed emotion. "No," he snapped. "Compliance requires force. Synchronization removes contradiction." The instant he said it, he regretted it. Lena saw it in his face. He sounded like one of them. "When the recursive cognition emerged, we tried to shut the project down." Recursive cognition? The infected stopped behaving like independent hosts. Lena's mind raced. A distributed intelligence. Yes. Her stomach dropped. "That isn't evolution." "No," Voss whispered. "It's convergence." The response frightened Lena, but her background in scientific research made her more curious. "What's inside this chamber?" she asked. Voss took too long to answer. Finally, "Not a thing," he said. Lena glanced toward him. "A process." "That's not an answer." "No," he admitted. "It's the closest word we have." A low tone pulsed through the corridor. Not an alarm. Recognition. The seam in the center of the door slowly widened. The movement felt deliberate, almost cautious, as though the chamber itself was deciding whether to let her enter. Lena remained still. Waiting was the only control she still possessed. The door opened fully, and the room beyond rewrote everything she thought she understood. The chamber was smaller than she expected. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Everything about this facility suggested scale, massive containment zones, deep infrastructure, entire systems hidden beneath systems. But this room was compact, intimate, almost quiet. White walls curved seamlessly into a white ceiling. The floor reflected light with unnatural precision. No visible vents. No exposed machinery. At first glance, it appeared empty. Then her eyes adjusted. People stood throughout the chamber. Dozens of them. Not restrained, not sedated, not wandering. Positioned. Lena stepped closer to the glass partition separating her from the interior space. The arrangement resolved itself slowly in her mind. The spacing between individuals was exact, not symmetrical, but balanced with impossible precision. Each person occupied a point that seemed mathematically related to every other point around them. No wasted movement, no accidental placement. It wasn't a crowd. It was geometry. Lena felt tension tighten in her throat. "These aren't test subjects," she murmured. "No," Voss replied. Her eyes tracked the formation. Breathing patterns synchronized across separate clusters. Small head movements occurred in staggered sequence. Even stillness felt coordinated. The chamber wasn't holding individuals. It was maintaining a system. "They're participating," Voss said quietly. That sentence should have sounded absurd. Instead, it explained everything she was seeing. Lena moved closer to the glass. For a brief second, her reflection merged with the figures inside, and something about that disturbed her deeply. "No," she said under her breath, "that's not infection behavior." Voss finally looked directly at her. "No," he agreed. A pause. "It's what comes after." Lena's eyes narrowed. She had spent years studying viral systems, neurological collapse, adaptive mutation pathways. Infection followed patterns. Degradation followed rules. But stabilization was supposed to be the end point, not the beginning of something else. One figure inside the chamber slowly turned its head, not toward movement, toward her. Lena froze. The figure's eyes locked onto hers through the glass. Not confused, not aggressive, aware. "That one recognizes me," she said quietly. "Yes." "How?" The man didn't answer immediately. "That," he said, "is why you're here." Lena kept staring at the figure. Its posture remained perfectly still, but the surrounding formation subtly adjusted around it, compensating for the shift, like a living equation recalculating balance in real time. No commands were issued. No signals were visible. Yet the response was immediate, distributed, collective. Lena's scientific instincts finally caught up to what she was seeing. "They're no longer responding as individuals," she whispered. Voss watched her carefully. "Go on." She stepped closer to the glass. If enough variables inside a system stop behaving independently, the system starts optimizing itself as a whole. Her voice slowed as the implications formed. Like a neural network. Silence. Voss didn't correct her. That frightened her more than if he had. A faint vibration moved beneath the floor. Not mechanical. Rhythmic. The chamber was active. And somehow, it felt aware of her presence. Lena folded her arms tightly. What exactly is this place? The man stared into the chamber. "This," he said, "is where convergence begins." The word lingered heavily in the air. Convergence. Not outbreak or mutation or infection. Direction. Purpose. Inside the chamber, several figures shifted position simultaneously. Not dramatically, just enough to alter the structure of the formation, like a ripple spreading through connected tissue. Lena frowned. Did someone signal them? No. Then what triggered that? The man's expression darkened slightly. We stopped being able to answer that question weeks ago. One of the figures stepped forward. Only one. Yet the others adjusted instantly to accommodate the movement, maintaining the same impossible spatial balance without hesitation. Lena's pulse slowed. That wasn't random, she said. No. It was allowed. Voss glanced toward her. Yes. She turned sharply. Allowed by what? For the first time since she arrived underground, Voss looked uncertain. Not cautious. Afraid. That, he said quietly, is the question that changed everything. The lighting inside the chamber dimmed slightly. Not failure. Adaptation. The environment itself was responding. Lena suddenly became aware of a terrible sensation creeping beneath her thoughts. The chamber was not merely observing her. It was incorporating her. She instinctively stepped back. The man noticed immediately. You feel it, he said. Lena kept her eyes on the figures beyond the glass. I feel... She hesitated, searching for language precise enough to describe it. Then, structure. Voss nodded once. That's how it starts. A silence settled between them. Not empty. Waiting. Somewhere deeper beneath the facility, hidden systems recalibrated. No alarms sounded. No warnings appeared. But Lena felt the shift all the same. Multiple processes had reached the same conclusion simultaneously, and agreed. She still believed she was standing outside the system, observing it, studying it. But the chamber already understood something she didn't. This was never a containment room. It was a threshold, and something inside it had been waiting specifically for her to arrive. The vibration beneath the floor deepened, not louder, more precise. Lena felt it through the soles of her feet, a steady, rhythmic pulse moving through the structure around her, like the facility itself had synchronized with something unseen. Inside the chamber, the figures remained motionless, except one. The same figure that had turned toward her earlier now stood slightly ahead of the others, separated from the formation, but still connected to it somehow. The balance of the room adjusted around its position automatically. No commands, no visible signals. The system compensated instantly. Lena kept her eyes on the chamber. This isn't post-infection behavior, she said quietly. No, Voss replied. Then what is it? He stepped closer to the glass. Have you ever watched a system complete itself? Lena frowned. That's not scientific language. It is here. Something in the way he answered unsettled her. Not because he sounded uncertain, because he sounded convinced. A section of the chamber wall illuminated softly. The surface itself became transparent, revealing streams of shifting data beneath it. Lena moved closer instinctively. Genetic sequencing filled the display, but it wasn't structured like anything she had studied before. The code folded back into itself in recursive loops, constantly reorganizing, adapting, refining. Not mutation. Optimization. Her eyes narrowed. That's not normal RNA behavior. No. She studied the flowing structures more carefully. Sections of biological code repeated in patterned cycles almost identical to machine learning architectures. Feedback loops. Correction pathways. Adaptive sequencing. Her stomach tightened. This is computational. Voss nodded once. Yes. Lena looked at him sharply. You're telling me the virus is processing information? Not like a virus, he said quietly. Like a system attempting to resolve itself. That distinction changed everything. Lena turned back toward the data. The Chimera strain had originally been designed for adaptive survival under extreme biological stress. She knew the architecture intimately. But this had evolved beyond survival. Every iteration refined instability out of the structure. Not toward aggression, toward efficiency. This wasn't part of the original design, she said. Voss didn't answer immediately. Then, no. A pause. It emerged afterward. Lena stared at him. Emerged? We don't know when the transition happened, he admitted. Only that once it began, the system started rewriting itself. A cold tension settled into her chest. She accessed the reconstructed Odysseus files stored in her internal cache, the fragments her father had hidden beneath encrypted compression layers. The interface responded instantly. Too instantly, as if it recognized the request. That alone made her uneasy. The gen key sequence expanded across the display again. But now Lena saw something she had missed before. A second layer hidden beneath the authentication structure. Not digital, biological. Her breathing slowed. No. Voss stepped closer. What is it? Lena isolated the sequence and magnified it. The gen key wasn't functioning as a password or command authorization. It was acting as a compatibility filter, a stabilization condition. The system could initiate without it, but it couldn't fully synchronize. This isn't a control mechanism, she whispered. Voss watched her carefully. No. Lena turned toward him slowly. It's an anchor. Yes. Her mind moved rapidly now, reconstructing implications faster than she could verbalize them. The system needed biological alignment to stabilize large-scale integration. Not just any biology, specific biology. She looked at him directly. And that anchor is me? The silence that followed was answer enough. Inside the chamber, the synchronized figures shifted again. Subtle movements spread through them in wave-like patterns, not reacting to noise, not reacting to motion, reacting to proximity. Lena noticed immediately. They're responding to this conversation. Yes. That's impossible. Not if the system recognizes convergence conditions. Lena shook her head. That implies intent. Voss's expression darkened slightly. Yes. The word landed like impact. Intent. Not infection. Not instinct. something worse. Lena stepped away from the glass. Her thoughts were no longer linear. Every explanation branched into deeper contradictions. You're saying Chimera developed dependency on a specific host profile? The man corrected her softly. Not dependency. A pause. Completion criteria. That wording chilled her more than anything else so far. She looked back into the chamber. The figures remained perfectly balanced within their formation, each movement calibrated against the others. Not alive in the way humans understood life. Integrated. "Why me?" she asked quietly. Voss answered this time without hesitation. Because your genetic profile is the closest match to the original architecture. That's not enough to explain system-level synchronization. No, he agreed. It only explains why the system recognized you.
The chamber lighting flickered briefly. Voss reacted instantly. Not surprise, concern. Inside the glass enclosure, the isolated figure stepped farther forward, breaking formation completely. Yet the others adjusted around it immediately, preserving the geometry of the system without disruption. Lena felt her pulse slow. This movement isn't random. No. It's selecting. Voss remained silent. Lena turned sharply. What is it selecting for? His eyes met hers. The same thing your father discovered before he disappeared. The words hit harder than she expected. Lena's throat tightened. My father knew about this? He confirmed it. Confirmed what? The man looked back toward the chamber. That the convergence had already started. The Gen Key display suddenly updated beside them. Match increase detected. 52.1%. Lena froze. I didn't trigger that. I know. Then what changed? Voss's voice lowered. The system is measuring compatibility in real time. That's impossible. No, he said quietly. It's expected. Lena instinctively stepped backward. For the first time since entering the facility, fear broke through the discipline of her thoughts. Inside the chamber, every figure slowly shifted orientation toward her. Not hostile, not aggressive. Recognizing. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. They know I'm here. Voss nodded. Yes. A long silence followed. Then, and they've been waiting for you. The chamber lights dimmed again. Not from power fluctuation. Response. Lena noticed it immediately. The room was adapting to her presence now, adjusting itself in subtle ways she could feel more than measure. Voss, beside her, remained still, but his composure had changed. He no longer looked like a scientist monitoring an experiment. He looked like someone waiting for confirmation. Lena broke the silence. You said the system was already running, she said carefully. What does that mean? Voss kept his eyes on the chamber. It means this facility was never the source. Lena frowned. Then where did it begin? Instead of answering, he raised a small handheld device. A projection unfolded between them. Not a map, a live systems model. At first, Lena thought she was looking at infrastructure networks, communication grids,
transportation flow, population density. Then the patterns aligned. Her stomach tightened. It wasn't infrastructure. It was behavior. Clusters across the globe pulsed in synchronized intervals. Entire regions lit up in waves that crossed borders and oceans with impossible timing. Europe, North Africa, Southeast Asia. Not spreading, but aligning.
"This is real time?" Lena asked. "Yes." She stepped closer. "That's impossible. Infection doesn't synchronize across continents." Voss's expression darkened slightly. "It does when infection is no longer the objective." Lena stared at the display. Movement patterns across the world were stabilizing into structure. Cities weren't collapsing into chaos anymore. They were organizing. The realization came slowly. "They're coordinating," she whispered. "Yes." "How?" Voss hesitated. "We believe the system is reducing behavioral randomness."
Lena looked back at the projection. Crowd movements flowed through urban centers like guided currents. Migration routes formed geometric corridors across multiple countries. No visible communication, no central command. Yet everything moved with timing precise enough to resemble machine synchronization. "That's not herd behavior," she said. "No," Voss replied. "It's convergence." The word carried more weight now. This wasn't infection adapting to humanity. It was humanity adapting to the system. A second feed opened beside the map. Recovered drone footage. A city intersection somewhere in South America. Thousands of infected moved through the streets. Not attacking, not wandering, flowing. The spacing between them remained unnaturally consistent, each movement adjusting smoothly around the others without collision or hesitation. Lena's breathing slowed. They aren't reacting independently anymore. No. They're operating collectively. Voss added. Like a distributed process. The phrase hit her hard because she had almost said it herself. The display updated again. New regions synchronized. Eastern Europe, India, the western coast of North America. Each transition followed the same pattern. Instability, alignment, then stabilization. Lena stepped back slightly. "This is accelerating." "Yes." "And there's no way to stop it?" Voss didn't answer. That silence was enough. Beside them, the Gen Key interface flickered. Match increase detected. 61.4%. Lena stared at it. That changed again. Yes. Her eyes narrowed. "I didn't do anything." "No," Voss said quietly. But the system did. Inside the chamber, every figure had become completely still. Waiting. Lena felt cold tension spread through her chest. What is it responding to? Voss finally looked at her. You. Before she could answer, the world map shifted violently. Not visually. Structurally. The synchronization delays between global clusters narrowed to nearly zero. Separate outbreak zones locked into identical timing patterns. The system had stopped behaving like scattered infection.
It was becoming singular. Lena stared at the display in disbelief. "This isn't outbreak management," she whispered. "No," Voss replied. "It's system completion." The chamber behind the glass changed again. Every figure inside slowly turned toward the same point. Toward her. Perfect synchronization. No hesitation or variation. Recognition. Lena felt her pulse spike. "They know I'm here." "Yes," Voss replied. A pause. "And they've been waiting for you." The silence that followed felt unnatural. Not empty. Held. Like the entire facility had paused between one state and another, waiting for permission to continue. Lena stared at the Gen Key interface beside the chamber glass. Match increase detected. 74.8%. The number climbed in slow, steady increments. Not random fluctuation. Progress. Her pulse tightened. "It's accelerating." Voss said nothing. That silence confirmed more than words could. Something had changed. Not inside the system, between the system and her. Inside the chamber, the figures remained perfectly still. But their stillness no longer looked passive. It looked intentional. Lena stepped closer to the glass again. For the first time, she no longer felt like an observer examining containment subjects. She felt like someone arriving late to an event already in progress. "What did you do?" she asked quietly. Voss kept his eyes on the chamber. "We didn't create this," he said. "We prepared for it." Lena turned sharply toward him. "Prepared for what?" This time, he answered immediately. "Completion." The word settled heavily in the room. A low vibration rolled through the facility. Not mechanical, structural. Like a signal moving through layers of buried infrastructure far below them. The chamber lights dimmed again. But instead of fading, they reconfigured. Angles shifted. Reflections changed. The shape of the room itself seemed subtly different, as though depth and distance were being recalculated around her. Lena's stomach tightened. "That's impossible." "No," Voss replied calmly. "It was impossible." The Gen Key display flickered violently, then stabilized. New text appeared beneath the percentage readout. Gen Key requirement satisfied. Partial host alignment achieved. Lena stared at it. "Partial?" "Yes." "What does that mean?" The man finally looked directly at her. "It means the system no longer requires full compatibility to proceed." A cold sensation spread through her chest. The system didn't need complete control. Only enough access to continue evolving. Inside the chamber, every figure moved simultaneously. One synchronized step forward. The sound was soft. Dozens of feet striking the floor in perfect unison. Lena instinctively stepped back. "What's happening?" "Phase lock," the man said. The figures adjusted around each other with impossible precision, maintaining flawless spacing as they moved. No collisions, no hesitation. Like components settling into their final arrangement. That's not infection behavior. No,
he agreed. It's closure behavior. Closure. The word sounded wrong. Not like death. Like sealing something permanently into place. Lena tore her eyes away from the chamber. My father said there was a kill switch. There was. And it failed? Voss hesitated for a moment. Then, it was never designed to stop the system. Lena felt her heartbeat slow. Then what was Odysseus? Voss looked toward the Gen Key display. An interface. Between what? He met her gaze. Between biological cognition and a system that evolved beyond biology. Lena shook her head immediately. No, that's not possible. Your father said the same thing. That hit harder than she expected, because she suddenly understood the fear hidden beneath Eris Thorne's fragmented transmissions. Not fear of the outbreak, fear of what it was becoming. The interface updated again. Match increase detected, 88.3%. Lena stepped backward. No. The number wasn't calculating probability anymore. It was approaching inevitability. It's converging, she whispered. Yes, Voss replied. Toward what? This time there was no hesitation. You. The word landed differently now. Not identity. Function. The global systems display behind them shifted again. Entire regions across the world synchronized simultaneously. Movement patterns aligned across continents within seconds. Not communication or coordination. Integration. Lena watched the data stream stabilize into unified behavior. It's all connected. Yes. How? Voss answered quietly. Through the same architecture forming around you. Inside the chamber, every figure stopped moving. Perfect stillness settled over the room. Then, one by one, every head turned toward Lena. No delay. No variation. Recognition. Not of a person, of a required condition. Lena felt her breathing falter. What happens when it reaches 100%? The man didn't answer. He didn't need to. A deep vibration moved through the facility again. This one stronger. Systemic. Like something enormous beneath the structure had shifted state. The Gen Key interface flickered one final time. Match increase detected, 97.6%. Lena stared at the number. Voss finally spoke. It doesn't stop at 100. A pause. It activates. Her voice barely formed the words. Activates what? He looked at her fully now. The system your father tried to contain. Silence filled the chamber corridor. Heavy. Final. Inside the glass enclosure, the infected figures remained perfectly still, not waiting for orders, waiting for completion. The lights dimmed one final time, and Lena finally understood the truth she had resisted since entering the facility. She was never outside the system. She was the final condition it required to become whole. The outbreak was no longer spreading. It was finishing the transformation it had been designed to achieve. And Lena Thorne had just become the last variable needed to complete it. What will happen to Lena and the world population above ground
When the Gen key reaches 100%, you won't want to miss the shocking final reveal in the Chimera Protocol Viral Outbreak series. Subscribe and ring the bell so that you will be notified when Book 4 is posted.